So if you own a 2006 to 2014 F150 and you're watching this video, then you're probably interested in upgrading that rear bumper so that you can enjoy some better protection, whether you're just daily driving your truck or you're taking it off-road. And the RedRock 4x4 Tubular off-road rear bumper is definitely one of the most popular for a couple of reasons. Number one, at around the $600 price point, it's one of the most affordable. You're getting 1/8-inch thick plate steel all welded to this tubular frame as one piece, so it's safe to say this will definitely provide better protection for the rear end of your truck, whether you get in a light fender bender or whether you're taking your truck off-road and you run into some obstacles. And even though this is one of the most affordable ones, it has something really cool going for it that some of the other options in this price range don't. And I'm referring to these really cool LED cube lights back here. These are actually plug and play and they're bolt-on, so there's no custom wiring required. You actually get a really cool toggle switch that you can operate inside the cab, so you can turn these on at any point in time. That's really convenient if you're backing your truck up, especially if you got a rear view camera. It'll help see things out back, especially again if you're on the trails or you're on a work site at night. Now, besides the cube lights and the price, I'm a fan of how this bumper looks. Obviously, it gives the truck a cool pre-runner look with that exposed frame here, and in my opinion, compared to some of the other options, this one's a little bit more understated, and it kind of closely matches the design and general shape of the factory bumper, which means that this one kind of flows better with the truck's body lines. But I'll show you that in a little bit when we pull the factory one up next to it. You guys can get a nice comparison. And lastly, this bumper installs very easily. It's a bolt-on job. There's just a couple of bolts and nuts holding it in place. You don't need any specialty tools, and you don't have to modify anything on the truck to get it installed. And compared to some of the other options, this is actually a little bit lighter in weight, making it a little bit easier, especially if you're doing this by yourself. I would say you could probably get this bolted up in maybe 1 to 2 hours in the driveway, and for that reason I'm going to give the install a pretty simple 1 out of 3 wrenches on my difficulty meter. If you've never done any sort of body work or any exterior mods, this would definitely be a good place to start because it's so simple. So again, if you want one of the most affordable rear armored bumpers in order to get some better protection out back, and you want some really cool plug and play lighting that's not often seen anywhere, then the RedRock 4x4 is the bumper for you. And when you guys get this thing at home, you can actually come back to this video. I'll show you exactly what sockets and wrenches and tools you need to get it installed, and I'll walk you through the entire install and the wiring step by step. Alright guys, to install your bumper you'll need standard drive ratchets as well as an 8mm and a 21mm deep socket, and optional but helpful tools include a small flathead screwdriver, some channel locks or some pliers, an impact gun with a swivel socket, and a breaker bar. Alright, so our factory bumper is secured with some pretty simple hardware. There's a triple bolt plate on either side next to the trailer hitch receiver, and on that bolt plate are 3 21mm nuts securing the bumper to the truck. Pretty straightforward stuff, but before we remove the bumper, we have to tackle some wiring harnesses. I'm talking about our trailer hitch plug as well as the wiring harnesses for both of our lights for our license plate. Those are just clipped in with plastic tabs, so just go ahead and give them a squeeze with your thumb, pull those out of there. It's kind of hard to show you guys where that is for both of those license plate lights, but the trailer hitch plug is right here behind me. Alright, so once you pop that free, both of those license plate lights are the same process. You just gotta feel up there above the trailer hitch. It's hard to show you guys, but it's just a little plastic pin like this one, so just press down on it with your thumb or index finger. Alright, so all of our wire connections are removed. Now we can finally remove the bumper, and again, it's 3 21mm nuts on either side with those triple bolt plates. So you'll need a 21mm deep socket. Very helpful to have a breaker bar if you don't have an impact gun like me. Now what we're going to do, we're going to pop 2 of those 3 nuts on either side. We'll lower our truck down on the ground, and then I'm going to grab a buddy. He's going to hold onto the bumper while I remove the last bit of hardware. If you're doing this by yourself, obviously it goes without saying, you should definitely have something supporting the bumper when you remove it. It is a little bit heavy. You don't want that thing falling down on you. I'd recommend using jack stands if you're doing this by yourself. Alright, so we successfully got our factory bumper removed. We're going to be swapping over some hardware from the factory bumper to our new one. But before we do that, I wanted to give you a couple seconds here. That way you guys can get a nice comparison between the two, and you can see some of the cool similarities and differences. And the big similarity that stands out for me that I personally like the most is something you might not expect. This pretty much follows the contours and the style of the factory bumper in terms of its shape and its size. And I'm a fan of that because if you've been looking around at all the bumpers that we sell, they are badass, they're big, they're loud, and they're proud, but there's not many available that are kind of understated and minimalist, and that's what I like about this one. I think that the factory bumper obviously does a good job of following the contour and the body lines of the truck, and this new bumper does a good job. So it just fits nicely and it looks good once installed, which obviously we'll be showing you guys that in just a second. But we're gonna go ahead and swap over some stuff here. We gotta remove our factory license plate lights. We gotta plug those into the new one. And we also have to remove the key lock for our spare tire. So go ahead and grab a flathead screwdriver and I'll show you guys how to get that done. Okay, so our license plate lights are located right here and we'll be removing those in a second. But while we're down here, I wanted to point out the triple bolt plates. We're gonna be reusing these to secure our new bumper to our truck, and sometimes they might be held on with these little flanged washers. Usually these get crushed in the uninstall process, but if there are any of those remaining, you can actually just pry up on these little tabs with a flathead screwdriver, or you can just grab some pliers and you can remove these. Once you've done so, you can pop these bolt plates out. All right, once you've removed those bolt plates, you can tackle your license plate lights. In order to remove these, you want to gently press it on these little tabs. You might have to press it on both sides, but if you're lucky, you can just press it on the one side. Work your way out, and then you'll pop these into the new bumper in the same way that they came out of the factory one. All right, now if you purchase this bumper with the optional LED cubes, then we can install the brackets for those. In order to install the bracket, you'll need this hex head bolt provided in the kit. It's got a 13mm head on it. You'll also need a 13mm wrench in order to tighten down the nut and crush washer behind it. All right, once you got the bracket secured, you can throw the light in place. What you want to do is you want to line up the light and all the holes in the light with the holes on the plate or bracket that you just installed, and you're going to actually rotate it in the orientation that the light would be facing out of the bumper, and again, make sure that the holes in here are lined up. Then what you're going to do, you're going to grab the little 10mm nylock nut and you're going to drop it down into the channel where that little Allen head bolt is supposed to fit. Now, it's very helpful to have a small flathead screwdriver. That'll help you line up that nut inside of there for the bolt itself. Once you got everything lined up, just go ahead and push that bolt through and then grab your Allen head key that's been provided in the kit and tighten it down on both sides. All right, we got both of our cube lights installed. Now we can install those triple bolt plates to the bumper so we can throw it on the truck. In order to secure these to the bumper itself, you're gonna be grabbing these little plastic washers. Just thread them onto each of the studs. All right, so we got those triple bolt plates set up. All we got to do is line up the bumper with the holes in the factory frame rails, and we're going to secure it using two of our original 21mm nuts. Now I got my good buddy Adam here on his day off to help me. If you don't have a friend with you, definitely use some jack stands to make this a little bit easier on yourself. All right, so now that our bumper is secured, we went ahead and we threw it back up in the air. That way you guys can see everything that we're doing underneath here. But more importantly, we got it supported with a pole jack. That way we're gonna push the bumper up. We're gonna help close that gap between the body and the bumper itself. Again, you'll need that 21mm deep socket to drive all these home. All right, now that our bumper is fully secure, we're gonna begin reconnecting everything. We're gonna start with our license plate lights, and then I'll show you guys how to hook up that new wiring harness for the fog lights. All right, now comes the fun part, and that's wiring up those LED cube lights. Now, there are a couple of ways that you can go about this, but if you notice in the kit, they provide you a really, really long wiring harness, and that's so you can route it all the way from the bumper up to the front end of the truck. What we're gonna do, we're actually gonna be tapping directly into the battery terminals to get power to both of our cube lights, and then we have a little connection that we can throw inside the cab. It's a little toggle switch, and that's actually how you control the lights, turning them on and off. Now, there are a bunch of different ways that you can route this cabling, but they provide a ton of zip ties in the kit. So basically, go ahead and plug both of these harnesses in, and then find a way to route all this stuff along the frame rails with those zip ties. Once you've done so, I'll meet you guys up front, and I'll show you how to get everything buttoned up front. Okay, so we routed all of our excess cabling along the frame rails, and we actually came up just behind the strut assembly here. That keeps all the wiring away from anything hot like the heads or anything like that, and it also keeps it away from any moving components. Now, we got a couple of things we have to secure here. Obviously, we got to get both of our leads secured to the battery terminals. You'll need an 8mm deep socket for that, and you'll also have to secure this relay. Now, you want to go to a ground right here, make sure this thing's grounded, and we have a couple of ground wires right here next to the washer fluid. That's also an 8mm nut. All right, now everything's set up here. You can do a quick function check of your lights, and you should hear that little relay clicking, and obviously you can check out back, see that your lights are working just fine. Now we got to figure out how to get this cable inside the truck, and that's pretty simple. There's actually a rubber plug that has a bunch of wires for the wiring harness to the ECU, and that's located on the driver's side next to the brake booster. So there are two ways you can go about this. You can route this along the top of the radiator, or you can actually go along this little plastic shroud here next to the firewall. There's actually a couple of plastic clips right there. Once you get this thing routed over to that rubber plug, you just got to pop that out. You can feed this into the cab underneath the steering column, and you can pretty much keep this tucked underneath there, or you can drill a little hole anywhere in the dash, and you can actually mount this in there permanently. Okay, so that little rubber plug is located down here. Like I said, it's kind of hard to show you guys without keeping my hand in the way there, but you can pretty much just pop this out with your hand, and that'll give you access inside the cab itself. Now once you pop that rubber plug out a little bit, it's simply a matter of threading that button through there, pulling all the slack through, and then you'll find a place to mount it on the dash. All right, so once you got that button pulled through the cab, really cool spot you could mount this is actually right next to the parking brake release. That's just a thin little piece of plastic. Simply drill a hole. It's a nice little inconspicuous spot for it, or you could just leave it tucked up underneath there, whatever you see fit. But at any rate, that'll wrap up this review and install of the RedRock 4x4 Tubular off-road rear bumper with LED fog lights fitting your 06 to 14 F150. I'm Travis, thanks for watching, and for all things F150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.